Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Don't Run Into Class, a podcast hosted by the Citizen.in. I'm Gayeti.
And I'm Anica.
And Anika, what are we chatting about today?
Today we're talking about how can he slap? Will Smith slaps Chris Rock at the Oscars. It has been the biggest incident in the history of everything. But today we're joined by Raghav Mandava here, a stand-up comedian and a comedy curator. He's done a lot in the past. He's based out of NCR. Raghav, what do you
Hello.
think of Chris Rock's? Hello, Raghav. Hello. What do you think
Hello.
of Chris Rock's joke? What do you think of the joke in itself?
Man, okay, so it's a weak joke, to be fair. I mean, especially from Chris Rock. It's like watching one of the best do like something very simple, very badly. Right. But the thing you have to understand is, right, from a comics point of view, the Oscars is basically a glorified corporate show.
Yeah.
Right. It's a glorified corporate show. So it's filled with these producers who are not a comedy audience. It's filled with these actors who are not a comedy audience. So he has to do this Mia Bibi style of comedy over there. He kind of just has to, right? So he's going for like the low hanging fruit. And from what I can see, I have a feeling, I don't know if this is true or not, I have a feeling that the G.I. Jane joke was just him riffing. He saw Jada Pinkett Smith over there and he just riffed. Like, I don't think he had prepared that joke. This is what I feel. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell from that. So but it was a weak joke. And considering the fact that Chris Rock has done a documentary about black people hair, you would think he would know better.
What is this documentary? Can you tell us just in a
So the
documentary
is called Good Hair. And the reason he made it is because when his daughter was 5, like kids in school made fun of her hair. So she came up to Chris Rock and said, "Dad, why don't I have good hair?" And the whole thing is about like black people hair and the struggles of black people hair. He even comes to India, to the Tirupati temple, to see how weaves are made. He even does this really funny joke. He's like talking to the South Indian girl who had really long hair. And he's like, if you see a black woman coming towards you, run. Just run. Like your hair.
Anika, I'm shocked that you've never heard of this documentary. I think you need to go watch it right after today's
Man, this whole Tirupati thing and the hair weave industry at the Tirupati is a whole side note that is so interesting. Temple economy, #temple economy. But going back to Raghav's point, that's really interesting that he did that. I feel like I want to ask, was there any news about Jada's condition in the media before this? Like, I kind of take your point about it was like a joke that was on the spot. That's what you're really trying to say, right?
Okay. So the thing is, like, she's been vocal about her alopecia and things like that.
Okay.
But the thing I really want to stress is when you choose to be a celebrity. I'm not saying when you're thrown into a limelight because of a meme. Like, the Smiths have chosen to be celebrities. Once you choose to be a celebrity, your body, your acts, your actions are not fully under your control. Like, I have a saying with stand-up, once these words are out of my mouth, they are no longer my words.
Yeah.
They are other people's words to do and alter and interpret as they please, because I have put this on a public platform. And if you've chosen to be a celebrity, you have also signed that social contract that people are going to make fun of you. You can't be like, yeah, I want the fans, but not the haters. I want the love, but not the jokes. You can't, I'm sorry, you can't do that when you've taken on the social contract of choosing to be a celebrity. That's very important here to me.
True. Gayeti, what's your take on this?
Dude, so I don't know. Firstly, the joke, I agree. I don't really think it was a particularly funny joke. But for me, it was more like while I was watching it, I didn't know whether like Will Smith's reaction was also part of the act. Like, first I was just like, okay, he's like completely, this is all scripted. Then when he sits back down and he's still raging, At that point, I was like, okay, he has definitely taken this very seriously. And for me, actually, it wasn't even about the joke anymore. It was just about Will Smith's reaction. It was just the fact that it was completely out of place. It was on a public
Yeah.
platform. It was entirely overblown. And I don't know, the fact that so many people were okay with what Will Smith went and did, and they were like, wow, he's defending his wife and he's protecting his wife, etc. For me, that was just like, it made me realize how pervasive toxic masculinity is. For me, I think that was the main realization. Like, we're so deeply ingrained in this idea of toxic masculinity where a man has to defend a woman using violence or,
Yeah.
like any kind of heavy handedness. And that
Yeah.
the whole world was kind of like excusing Will Smith, from comedy
Yeah.
actors to celebrities. The Academy, in fact, Raghav, I want to ask you about the fact that the Academy didn't even, they issued a very weak, muted statement about how they don't condone violence, but there was no cutting to a break. There was no throwing Will Smith, out of the
It
theater. There was none of that.
was.
Yeah,
It was
tell us.
nothing outright or short of shameful, spineless, and disgusting. And it also, like Jim Carrey just recently said this quote, and I was watching him, and like it just proves to you that Hollywood as an industry is spineless. As an entire industry, it's spineless. Like so many of them knew about Harvey Weinstein. They didn't do anything. They saw a crime being committed right in front of them, and they gave this guy a standing ovation. Now, if I was Chris Rock in the green room, I'd be like, "Fuck this world!" Like I just got jobbed in
Yeah.
front of everybody, and now these people are applauding the guy who jobbed me. Like
Yeah,
what?
the moments that followed while he stayed and he won and he gave a long speech and he went to the after party and he rapped at that. Just the lineup of events is quite. It's
It's
very,
shocking.
very. It's profoundly strange. It's profoundly strange. Okay, in my opinion. However, right, like. Okay, so here's a joke, right? What did Kareena Kapoor say when she was watching watching the Oscars, and she saw Will Smith do this?
What did Kareena Kapoor say?
She said guts. I mean, this is what blows me, guts, right? Like, this is something she says all the time, guts. Oh my God, you got some guts. This is the thing that blows me away. You're at the Oscars, right? You're Will Smith, you're right front row, okay? At the Golden Globes, year after year, we've seen Ricky Gervais like pull out a monologue that is so slashing that
And
people had to
destructive.
take the
It's
and destructive, and that
mean.
people had to take, yeah, absolutely mean spirited. But that has happened in the past, and somebody is on this stage and cracking a joke as a comedian, right? You can get offended, and in my personal opinion, Will Smith's partner, when she rolled her eyes, that in itself was going to result in 1,000 memes. And Chris Rock would have understood that this was a bad, lazy joke. But the fact that
No
he got up,
slap.
jabbed him, came back, sat down, screamed from his seat twice with a curse word at the Oscars. It's just bad behavior, man. It's like
It's
terrible.
just bad
It's
behavior.
toxic, and it is patriarchy. I mean, she already rolled her eyes. I mean, she can take. So I was a bit offended. Why do you have to get? And you laughed 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Clearly there is something. Like there is something. I mean, gotta give Will Smith some benefit of the doubt in the sense, obviously, he's not in a good place mentally. It's so obvious. Like this is Will Smith we're talking about. He's been the biggest smile in Hollywood that I can remember. And for him to do that, like it's also like watching a hero fall. One.
yeah,
Two,
yeah.
like, and can I just circle back to one thing? It's kind of funny, like Chris Rock was cracking lame jokes before the slap, and after the slap, he turned into a much better comedian.
Oh my God, can I please tell you today? I read in the BBC, right? Chris Rock has a tour going on, and right after the slap, his tickets on a ticketing platform skyrocketed.
Yeah, of course.
Skyrocketed. Like
It's
everyone's bought his ticket,
it's
right?
proper
It's,
publicity. I have a feeling that he like people are going like, I want to see Chris Rock address this in the show. But mind you, how good is Chris Rock? You've been slapped on the face, man. That's shocking as. And then after that, you have the presence of mind to address it like a joke. get a laugh out of the audience. And then you can see it, like you can see it on his face after the slap. Like he's got this smile of mischief, like a few seconds out of the slap. Especially when Will says, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. You can see that Chris Rock has thought of a banger of a joke. You can see it. Like I know, like I'm a comic. I know that face. I know that I've got you. I've got a joke that will ruin you, but I won't do it because I'm at the Oscars. Like Chris Rock had the presence of mind to not do that joke after being slapped. And Will didn't have and think about Will Smith. He had so much time to rethink his decision. He got off that chair. He took 10 steps to Chris Rock. He had time to rethink his decision.
Correct.
And what makes it kind of funnier, like because I'm a comic, I love chaos. All comedians love chaos in some way or the other. Chris Rock makes a slap so easy because he's leaning forward because he thinks Will is going to say something to him. So he's presented his face in that slap.
Ao bel mujhe maro.
Yeah, because but he wasn't expecting it. He obviously wasn't expecting it. His face was fully leaned forward when he took that slap. It's quite, that part I found genuinely funny. Like Will Smith will never get an easier slap in his life.
So wait, guys, we think this was a poor joke. We think that this was like sort of even like a bad reaction. I think we're all on the same page. There's no disagreement amongst the three of us that the joke was weak and like Will Smith should not have reacted the way he reacted. But Raghav, I know like we've spoken about this a little bit before, but when we speak about the right to offend, we always talk about the right to be offended, right? Like, so if the freedom of speech gives you that ability that, you know, you can and should be able to stand up at a public platform, say what you have to say, let it be insulting, offensive, whatever. And if somebody in that audience thinks it's offensive, they have that right as well. So where do you think we should personally draw the line as far as the right to be offended is concerned? Do we draw the line at physical violence? At
physical violence is physical violence.
Okay.
Easy. That's so easy for me. Like you can make as much show as you want because that is also your right. And I get it. I've offended people by speaking English on stage. Right. So, and I get it. You're not understanding me. That's like a disconnect. You come to this comedy show and here's a comic you don't understand. It's like fair. I get it. But physical violence, no. First of all, I'm a massive pacifist. Right. I've been in one fight in my entire life, and that was in the 9th grade. So maybe my views are different. There are some people out there who are genuinely, you know, pro violence or pro what you call it, I don't know, revenge. Like for example, there's this really funny joke. There's this joke by Chris Rock, and I think it's gonna backfire on him. Chris Rock used to do this bit long time back about O.J. Simpson's murder. O.J. Simpson's murder. And the joke was, imagine you catch your wife cheating on you in your car, in your house, with your money. I'm not saying I would have killed her, but I understand.
Yeah.
This is Chris Rock's joke.
You are
right?
wrong.
Yeah. So, I'm not saying I would have slapped him, but I understand.
I mean, we also so readily say this to, like, oh my God, that guy's behaving so badly. Yeah, give him a slap. Like, it's an expression, right? It's an expression that please keep quiet, keep him out. Shut, right? But here to have actually see, the thing is, like, everything, all logic goes to the gutter when it's at the Oscars. Okay, you're wearing your best suit, you planned this outfit for like months, your PR people are dying for the +1 ticket to the Oscar table so that they can write your narrative and take a nice picture. It's a full production for each celebrity. So then this to happen at the Oscars is just like mind-boggling. And what I'm interested to know from the both of you also is like, what is the spillover that's going to happen? Some really big historic moment has happened, right? Now, Jim Carrey's also come out and given out a statement while promoting his movie. And he said that he would have just slapped him with a suit of like $200 million or something like that if it was him. And that has never really happened before. So like, now what do you think is going to happen in terms of this narrative of violence, of what narrative is going to come out of it is what I'm
I
asking.
first
Even Gayeti, I would be very interested to know, because she follows all of this stuff from a reporter's angle.
I
well,
don't, I mean, I'd throw the question back to Raghav, very honestly, Anika, because I had a similar question for him, which was that, we've seen in India, for instance, a lot of like, sedition laws or censorship and things like that used at comedians.
mhm.
And I mean, of course, it's a very different scenario to, let's say, the Oscars and the fact that somebody is threatening you with a suit. But we do see like comedians facing a backlash, whether it's the form of Will Smith getting up and smacking Chris Rock, or whether it is somebody saying that I'll sue you with a defamation suit, or somebody else slapping a sedition, the government
Or
slapping a
throwing you
sedition,
in jail.
throwing you in jail on literally on sedition charges. So
Mhm.
yeah, so Raghav, let's hear from you first before Anika and I sort of like give our take. What do you think is the backlash that comedians are facing, let's say in the larger ambit globally, in India, and
It's
personally?
it's it's a weird time to be a comic because first of all, the world is polarized, right? So you can't make jokes on any side because everybody's become us versus them. They've put themselves in these boxes. They've tied their opinions to their identity. Everybody, right? And it's a weird time to be a comic. It's a scary time, I would like to say a little bit, because y- the fact that nothing has happened to Will yet after slapping a comic on stage is genuinely frightening. It sends the wrong message. You know what I mean? It sends the wrong message. I mean, we tore Kanye West apart for not letting Taylor Swift have her moment at the MTV Music Video Awards. And keep in mind, Kanye was right. Like, keep in mind, Kanye was right about Taylor not having the best video that year. We all can agree on that. It was her video beat all the single ladies.
I'm
Come
not too
on.
sure about all of those things. I'm not going to agree anything related to pop culture where Kanye and
Fair
Taylor, I
enough.
have to deeply investigate.
Fair enough. But keep in mind, like Kanye is like, I mean, it's also Kanye, right? So like, it's easier to like vilify him. But his career was on a downspin for a long time, and to this date, you still bring out like the time. Uh, for the thing that bugs me the most, the thing that's kind of like triggering me a little bit is Will's apology.
Hmm.
It's so obvious. 1 hour after the slap, you're posting a reel saying that we got dressed up and we chose chaos.
Yeah,
And so obviously you don't repent that slap. He's probably proud of what he did on
he
the basis
is.
of that. Yeah, he's probably
And
proud of what he did.
so were the
And
people watching, Raghav. So were all the commentators and like news anchors. They were like, wow, he's defending his wife.
not all, a lot of people
So
for
many.
example, yeah, the thing is, I think what's also happened is, right, if you have a face to your social media, you will probably be, and like it's also got misconstrued with women's issues, right? This is also got construed with women's issue. I don't know if in the larger scheme of things this is a woman issue. This is, you can't make fun of someone issue. It's not like he could have made the joke. He could have made a bald joke about anybody. He could have made a joke about anybody's medical condition over there, right? But it's
Right.
because like also people are like, see, because people have chosen and let me wait. Let me just clear out the sentence in my head. Because people have sort of been like, and for the good, that we need to protect women. Women had it
But
bad
can
for a
I tell
while.
you, Raghav?
Let me
Can
just
I
finish
tell
this
you?
thought. Let me just finish
Yeah,
this thought.
yeah.
Like women have had it bad for a while. We need to protect women. So right now, people are also going, comedian, औरत का मजाक उड़ाया. I'll choose with औरत. You know what I mean? Because the larger conversation lately has been that you got to treat women better and things like that. When you're given these two options in isolation, people are going औरत की इज्जत. You know what I mean? In isolation, if they're just given these two things, it's like not caring about comedy, not caring about what a comedian is supposed to do, not caring about Oscars, not caring about anything. If you take all of that aside and you just leave like the people will be like, this comes in the Venn diagram of women's issues, so I'm going to side with that.
Hmm.
I think that's what's happening to the overall public.
Anika, I'll ask you a question. First, I also just wanted to say that, firstly, a lot of like the comments that I'm seeing now on my social media feed are kind of like, why is everyone even talking about Will Smith and Chris Rock? There's a lot more happening in this world, right? I mean, you have the
Mm.
Ukraine war and you have like other things, and like this has happened in America. It doesn't impact us in India. Let's talk about real issues. So, at one level, I know we're joking that this is a historic, sort of like earth-shattering moment, but at one level we're like, how does it really impact our lives? But what I think is like, it's basically really interesting to watch celebrity culture play out like this, right? Because Will Smith, by virtue of being Will Smith, didn't get the flack that, let's say, somebody else would get. His
Right.
partner, Jada Pinkett Smith, being somebody who's dealing with a medical illness, was a second veneer to like protecting Will Smith from any sort of repercussion. The third layer of it was the fact that like the joke was unscripted. There's so many, it's sort of like you're seeing six different layers like play out at the same time. And yet at the same time, you have like what actually is kind of like a microcosm of like the comedy circuit everywhere in the world, like comedy and satire and sort of the repercussions that comedians and satirists face, playing out in front of you in a celebrity format as well, right? Which is kind of like the question that I'd asked you, Raghav, about whether you've faced any personal backlash as a comedian and how have you dealt with it. But Anika, just to sort of like get your thoughts on it, because we've sort of like, been thinking out loud quite a bit over here. What are your thoughts? I mean, you're somebody who follows the Indian comedy scene quite closely as well.
Hmm.
Um, Give me an idea of like, where do you draw the line in terms of like the reaction? Like, where do we have the right to be offended?
I think, I'll tell you, in terms of the Indian comedy scene and the global comedy scene, my favorite comedy genre is offensive comedy, right? I like things that are very offensive, very dark. So I don't get so easily offended. But I take Raghav's point as to we live in a slightly polarized world where people are, in different camps and they have different categories of considering what they shouldn't cancel. So in that regard, I fear like the comedy scene might be a little suppressed, especially here in India. According to me, a lot of comedians are not mainstream comedians anymore. A lot of the biggest comedians of India are not mainstream comedians anymore. They're more like streamers now, just because they are creating their own platforms, and everyone's thinking of a new business model of how to, kind of deliver their art. Really out there. But the idea of getting offended, I think you can get offended to words, but I think you should always remember that they are just words, right? And if you want to take some action, I'm slightly man, I can get upset and angry and everything, but when you're in a public forum, even if it's your child's birthday party, and doing something like this is bad behavior, equally to be condemned. So that's where I kind of stand on this larger comedy issue. But like, there have been incidences around in the world where comedy has been a bit too politically edgy, that it's actually incited a lot of security issues in countries. We've seen that in France, Getty. I think the Citizen,
I
has
I
covered that.
actually did want to raise that because I feel like that's
Yeah.
an extreme example. But when you see things at the extreme, they make like all these sort of grayer areas far more clear. But for instance, the Charlie Hebdo attack,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
the Charlie
Mm.
Hebdo attack was a terror attack at a magazine that published. It was at satire. It was basically what people said that was very closely enshrined in the freedom of speech. But if you looked at that
Mhm.
satire, it was very problematic, because it was kind of racist there's no
Very
other word for
racist.
it.
There's
It
no
was
one. It's
racist.
very racist.
And
Very offensive.
that's when I remember really understanding satire through the prism of that satire, and comedy should punch up and not down. Like you shouldn't be making fun of people that are at the bottom of the hierarchy as opposed to the
Yeah.
people who are at the top of the hierarchy, like the social economic hierarchy. So that's how I understood it. But that
Mm.
did not at any level condone or like excuse or at any sort of take away from the complete atrocity of the terror attack that happened on the Charlie Hebdo offices. And in that scenario, it was so easy to see this. It was so easy to say that, okay, it was bad satire. I didn't think it was good satire. But
Not
what
at all.
happened was absolutely insane and needs to be condemned in each and every with the strongest words possible. Now, when you take that at, sort of at a far more sort of innocuous level, you're not talking about deaths and you're not talking about terror attacks. You're looking at a bad joke and somebody going and punching somebody for that bad joke. But you see it the same way. It was a bad joke with a reaction of violence or heavy-handedness or censorship or a terror attack or whatever it might be, is not justified at all either. For me, it is black and white. For me, in fact, like this entire debate was just ends at Will Smith acting completely out of line, and you can, I'm completely sympathetic to people's mental health struggles, but that does not excuse bad behavior on a public platform like that.
And I feel like Will Smith should have learned from India's experience. India is always ahead on these things. The number of politicians and people who have been, slapped, thrown ink on chappals on
shoes, throw shoes,
shoes. But I mean, America is always forever behind on these things, at least from India. We at least had like women prime ministers, women presidents. They're still struggling there. Ye chappal hai, thappad ke mamle mein bhi they are back. My favorite meme that came out on the internet was Chris Rock FaceTiming Arvind Kejriwal and they sharing their experiences. I was like, too good. I was like, it was perfect, man. Yes, you should share.
A friend of mine, Puneet Bhania, he's like, the Indian comedy scene is far more evolved. Over here, comedians slap the audience.
That actually happened? Really?
I think so. I don't know whom. I don't know who did this, but I think something like this has happened. I know a comedian who's rushed an audience member for sure. But speaking to this thing, I have pissed off people. Obviously, I have. I'm a comic who every now and then likes to push the line, right? And once I was rushed on stage, but thankfully there were people around, and also I think that guy was just trying to threaten me. He really didn't have any intent to hurt. He was just trying to scare me, which worked because I'm a massive pacifist / or as Mardani people will call it fattu, but massive.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. But it is what it is, right? I'm like, hey man, a fight is coming. How can I get out of this situation? That's my whole jam. Right. But there was this one time somebody threatened to get me arrested. And thankfully there were lawyers in the audience and you haven't done anything yet. It became a whole thing to riff. But then he waited outside for me after the show. And thankfully the comedy club had a back exit. So I just bailed. I'm not going to face this idiot who's angry at me, who wants to get me arrested over a political joke. And the weirdest thing is me with a political joke, I'm the most apolitical person I vote Nota because I'm like, screw all of you. And uske upar bhi, he got upset. He got upset over a Nota joke. Yeah, it's so weird. But people are allowed to express their offense. For example, if Will Smith cuts out the slap, imagine that whole timeline is like a video edit. You cut out the slap and you keep Will Smith to keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Chris Rock is going to get cancelled or will face cancel style things. Had he just expressed it like that, had he not, he ruined whatever this thing he had by hitting him.
But I think Raghav, I don't think she should have expressed that. Jada rolled her eyes, and they could have seen it later and dealt with it later.
Yeah, she had walked away. If she had walked away,
yourself when you're at a, like you said, a glorified corporate event is just, is just bad behavior. Just handle it later. Go to his house and talk to him later.
That would have been totally excusable, right? You've heard someone is your wife's medical condition and you get up and shout about it. Everybody would be like, yeah, Will Smith, you go. No.
The slap was also excusable as of today.
To some people, Tiffany Haddish of all the people, to some people, right? But the thing is, I did a survey on Instagram, right? And about 500 people voted, and only 12% went with the slap was okay. Everybody else was like, fuck Will Smith. A lot of people. But then I'm a comic, and my timeline will be geared towards comedians. But still,
But this sort of like F Will Smith attitude came later. When it actually happened, a lot of the people were like, oh wow, okay, which is why even the Academy didn't respond, which is why
A
he
lot of
got a
people,
standing ovation when he won the Oscar.
the
Yeah.
In the
can
moment,
the
everyone kind of like supported what he did, and it's only
it,
after a night sleeping on it for a night or whatever did people realize that it was ridiculous behavior. So yeah.
if I was like hoping that Chris Rock sues Will Smith and gives all the money to like an alopecia charity. That would have been hilarious. But I genuinely now think Chris Rock should sue the Academy. They are supposed to protect him. They've hired him. He is in their workspace.
Exactly.
It's a office harassment issue.
Yeah,
It's
I
an
agree.
office violence issue.
I agree. And
Chris Rock
also,
should.
the Academy is having a hard time getting hosts. I mean, who was the last host for the last Academy Awards? Does anyone even
And
remember?
also
Yeah,
like Will Smith just ruined everybody's night who
yeah.
won that day. You tell me,
Except the
name.
Oscars, because the Oscars, their viewing increased by
Yeah,
some over 50%.
yeah, for a little bit, for a little bit. Nobody's gonna come back to be like, "Aaj shayad kisi aur ko thappad milega." Like that audience is not gonna come back. And like right now, if you're listening to this podcast right now, name 5 winners from last night.
No, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Exactly. Name 5 winners from last night. Exactly. Because he ruined everybody's evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody who was nominated sweat their balls off or whatever while they're waiting for their nomination. One lost, everybody. Like, okay, fine. He did make it easier for everybody who lost at the Oscars because they're like, no one will remember this.
No one will remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
everybody who won will be pissed at Will Smith because it's all about Will Smith.
It's true. I read a couple of articles later about how there were, some sort of first time nominees, some documentary filmmakers, some people who won, very big. For them, it's a highlight in their career. And everything was sort of like overshadowed by this incident. And yeah, I mean, this is also the power of celebrity, right? Like, no, nobody else in that audience, other than somebody of the caliber or stature of Will Smith, would have had even the gumption to maybe get up and do what he
Yeah.
did without thinking of the consequences. Most people would have to think of the consequences.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, this isn't 1980. You know what I mean? Like earlier, celebrities used to get away with a lot of things because hello, we didn't have recording all the time. They could do all sorts of shit behind closed doors and so forth. But I think Hollywood specifically, and even Bollywood, all your institutions of celebrity, your
But this is,
institutions of celebrity
yeah.
need to have a hard look at themselves.
But
absolutely.
here I want to catch this one point and just like kind of highlight this. The fact that before they did not behave this badly because it wasn't recorded to that level. Our lives today are always on record, right?
Hmm.
So I think we also, as people, have become so very comfortable in front of the camera to be human and not have the poise that you have when you are public facing,
Fair
that
enough. That
behavior
like
like this is allowed. Like I feel like back in the day, like even the worst, like even Harvey Weinstein would not be in front of the camera doing crazy stuff, right? It's all behind the camera. But here now, our lives are so open that somehow human behavior has changed a little bit. I feel like that could have something to do with it as well.
hundred
How the
percent.
comfort, how the guts, So yeah,
hundred
very
percent.
interesting.
Like, yeah, because I'm guessing like the line for these celebrities is now completely blurred between when are you on and when are you off. Like earlier,
Yeah.
everybody couldn't afford a camera, right? So like literally just 20 years ago, when Will Smith was still the shit, and
Mm.
like it's not like he had a camera coming to his face all the time. He could go away to places and so on and so forth. He could go be so he could like turn that on and off. Like I have that. Like you have to turn on the stage you and you have to turn off the stage you. That
Mm.
happens. But you can't excuse Hollywood for this sort of behavior. You just can't.
Yeah, you can't.
It,
And I completely agree with that as
and
well.
I can't wait. Like, and it's happening. Their hold on the audience is weakening. Thank you, YouTube, for that, because YouTube has made it so much like YouTube has made it like the people's choice who they want, who they don't want. Like, yeah, you fine, you will get the odd YouTuber who is like a complete tool. But
Yeah.
the people chose that tool. You know what I mean? Hollywood till this day, Hollywood and Bollywood till this date have been like, here's what we want you to have, right? Like the hand, but that power is slipping. It is
Yeah.
going. For example, like now, if you're a comedian or an artist of any kind, right, and you have a little bit of email corporate know-how, which everybody does to some degree, you don't even need an agent anymore. You don't even
Yeah.
need a management agency anymore. You can
No,
just
there's
hire a friend and be like,
definitely
just look at my
there.
emails.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Raghav. There is definitely a shift in celebrity culture, and I think that's going to have to be material for a subsequent episode because we're kind of like
Sure.
out of time. But
Hmm.
I wanted to sort of just end this with a little acknowledgement that our relationship with you actually goes back a long way. And Anika had wanted me to bring this up as well because there was an article in that had kind of like gone viral amongst like the Delhi circle because it was kind of it was I don't know, it wasn't really a journalistic piece, I have to admit. It was
It
more
wasn't
Yeah.
listicle. It was like a
It was a
provocative
listicle.
listicle
It was a
and a
listicle.
satire piece, right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raghav actually put up a hilarious, well, I didn't know you at all at that point, Raghav, right? Like I just came across your video on YouTube, kind of like ripping that article to shreds, and along with it the Citizen as well, right? Like there were quite a few nasty jokes directed at the Citizen. But I remember watching it in like the middle of the night and just laughing. Like I was just laughing out loud because so much of it, like, hit home, for lack of a better word. And
Yeah.
I messaged you, I think on Facebook or something. I found your contact and I said, can we share this on the Citizens or, on the Citizens
I
home?
was I was like, what are you saying? Of course.
You were
But
surprised. So that's the
I was
question.
totally surprised. I
Yeah.
was totally surprised. I just shat on your entire paper and you were like, hey, we like the content. I'm like, but this has happened to me before. Like it's happened to me again afterwards. I remember making fun of a food festival, and the next thing I know, I'm hosting Zoma Land. I'm like, people are weird, bro.
I think the important point to take away is that it's all right to laugh and it's okay to laugh at yourselves. And yes, sometimes maybe the jokes are more on the inappropriate and insulting side. And if that is the case, then you do have the right to take offense. You have complete right to
Yeah,
think that it was a bad joke, but there is a way to handle it. I think that is
like,
kind
but
of like what we're ending.
that's the thing. Like, I reacted, but I reacted in a play, like in a way that didn't. I mean, it could have hurt people. I mean, the jokes were really mean, right? But thankfully,
But
I
that's
don't know.
okay. I guess
I
I guess the main thing is that you have become the Citizen's favorite reaction person now. And
Raghu
that's
was
how
on
we
a
have to
panel
leave it in.
also. We invited him for a panel discussion on, and that
Oh,
was a
nice.
really good conversation on comedy. We called it Please Don't Laugh. And we kind of like analyzed comedy and satire and like the political repercussions of comedy and satire. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we had Raghu join us for that as
yeah,
well.
like
But
I don't know. I mean, it's funny that my reaction is why this relationship is here. It's really weird to me. Like, it's like we started off with little fisticuffs, and then it's like it's a very, to be honest, the article was about Delhi, like and Delhi people, but that's a very Delhi thing. कि लड़ाई के बाद दोस्ती हुई है. It's such a Delhi thing. It only happens in Delhi. At least this guy fought fair. He fought well. ये मस्त बंदा है. It's such a Delhi attitude. It's
yeah.
It's
such a
good,
Delhi
man.
thing.
We're hard. We're hard
Yeah,
and
we're
we're
hard that way.
sweet.
I was telling this to
Yeah.
someone recently. Delhi is the kind of city that will either make you a Dilli wala or chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything else. You can't be like Delhi is okay and live in Delhi. You can't.
Okay, guys, we're going into very many tangents. So clearly
Fair
we'll
enough.
to
Sorry.
get Raghav on board again, but we're going to have to say goodbye for now. And yeah, how can he slap, Raghav? How can he slap?
How
Right?
can he slap? How can he slap?
All
How
right.
Yeah.
can he slap? Even the producers of the original "How Can She Slap" video were, faced repercussions for their actions when they all beat him up afterwards. He was compensated nicely. And my final thoughts on this are like Chris Rock should sue the Academy. He
Chris
should
Rock, if
sue
you're
the
listening, then
I
you
hope
yeah
you're
have
listening,
some
Chris Rock. Raghav has
sue
some
the
advice.
words to have with
Academy.
you.
Sue the Academy. Those old farts who don't know what a good movie is, please, like sue them.
That would be the real
Well,
victory as far as Raghav is
It really would
concerned.
be. It
Yeah.
really would be. They failed to protect an employee. They hired Chris Rock.
yeah.
Yeah.
They failed
Well,
to protect an
thanks,
employee.
Raghav. Thanks, Raghav, for
Thanks,
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you
It
for
was
having me.
fantastic. Yeah. All right.